Welcome to Biology Minds. Today we're going to talk about the urinary system. So as we move forward, we've learned a lot of the different systems, and now we kind of conclude with talking about the urinary system and then the reproductive system. The urinary system kind of brings everything together. It really plays a major role in maintaining homeostasis along with the circulatory system and the respiratory system. As well as with the digestive system. So all these things come together, and that's why we talk about the urinary system after we talk about all the other systems. So the urinary system may seem very simple because it really consists of these four main organs. You have the kidneys, the ureters, so you have two kidneys on each side, and then you have your ureters coming down. Anything that is produced by the kidneys is going to then come down to the bladder, urinary bladder, and then it is going to be excreted out through the urethra. When we talk about male versus female, a big thing is the urethra is a lot shorter in females, a lot longer in males. So that is a difference between males and females. Other than that, you'll see that in males and females, the kidneys, the ureters, and the urinary bladder are going to be very similar. So these are the four main organs in the urinary system, and this is the order that they go in. So you're going to have blood constantly flowing into the kidneys, and it is filtering that blood. And as it filters that blood, anything that is trying to get rid of, whether it be minerals, salts, or water, then it is going to be excreted or sent through the ureters to the urinary bladder, and then you are going to excrete it out through the urethra. So the three functions of the urinary system: excretion, getting rid of that organic waste, as well as elimination is going to be any waste products you're getting rid of, and a big major role in homeostatic regulation of blood plasma volume, solute concentration, the amount of water that is in your body, that is in your blood. Functions of the urinary system: kidneys are the organs that are going to produce urine, that nitrogenous, we call it nitrogenous or nitrogen waste. Right, if we're trying to get rid of nitrogen, we are using the kidneys to do so. Urinary tract is going to be the organs that eliminate the urine. You're going to have your ureters, which come from the kidneys and go to the urinary bladder, and from the urinary bladder, then it is an exits out through the urethra. So urination or micturition is the process of eliminating urine. So anytime you hear this word micturition, it just means urination, getting rid of that urine. Homeostatic functions of the urinary system: regulates blood volume and blood pressure, regulates plasma ion concentrations, helps stabilize blood pH, conserves valuable nutrients, making sure that we keep those nutrients in that we want, and it assists the liver in detoxifying anything that's in the body, getting rid of poisons. The kidneys are located on either side of the vertebral column, either side of that spine. Left kidney lies a little bit superior to the right kidney. Typically, now everybody's different. Some people it may not be like that, but typically when we see what we see in people is that the left kidney is a little bit higher than the right kidney. Some people are only born with one kidney. Some people get a kidney removed as they donate it to someone that they may know that it is in kidney failure. So everybody is different, but typically when we talk about the anatomically correct person, the left kidney is superior to the right kidney. You have the adrenal glands on top of or superior to each kidney, and position is maintained by the peritoneum, as well as contact with other organs, kind of sandwiching those kidneys in where they are, and supporting connective tissues as well. Each kidney is protected and stabilized by three concentric layers, layers that are going around the organ itself. So you have a fibrous capsule, which is covering that outer surface of the entire organ. Then you have the perinephric fat, which surrounds the renal capsule, and then you have the renal fascia, which is a dense fibrous outer layer that anchors the kidney to the surrounding structures. So here they show you the kidneys. All right, this is a posterior view of the body. Here it shows you a cross section of the body where you see that this is your spine right here. Your kidneys are sitting lateral and anterior to that spine. Another diagram. All right, typical adult kidney is about 10 centimeters long, 5.5 centimeters wide, and 3 centimeters thick. It weighs about 150 grams, not very big. The hilum is the point of entry to the renal artery and the renal nerves, point of exit for the renal vein. So when you hear about the hilum, that is where the artery is entering and the vein is exiting. You have the renal sinus, which is internal cavity within the kidney. The renal cortex is a superficial portion of the kidney in contact with the renal capsule. And then you have renal pyramids, about 6 to 18 distinct conical or triangular structures. People typically, when we see a cross section, they look triangular. People like to think of them as triangular structures in the renal medulla, which is in from the renal cortex. And then you have renal columns, which are bands of cortical tissue separating adjacent renal pyramids, and they extend into the medulla, having distinct granular texture. You have the kidney lobes, consist of the renal pyramid, the renal cortex, and tissues of the renal columns. It produces urine. You have the renal papillae, which are ducts that discharge urine into the minor calyx, kind of like a drain, and then you have the major calyx formed by about 4 or 5 minor calyces. The renal pelvis is a large funnel-shaped chamber. So here you see the hilum, where we're going to have the ureter right here, and you're going to have arteries and veins entering and exiting. Here we see that we have these renal columns, and here is, you see this area right here is our renal medulla, and this outer portion right here is our renal cortex, and you have these minor calyx, which are going to then feed into the major calyx. Nephron is the functional unit of the kidney. So when we talk about certain areas or units of the kidneys that really are doing the work, we have nephrons. Nephrons are these much smaller portions of the kidneys, and the kidneys are made up of thousands of nephrons, and these thousands of nephrons are going to be responsible for filtering out the blood and making sure that we are producing urine. Blood supplied to the kidneys, it receives about 20 to 25% of the total cardiac output. 1,200 milliliters of blood flows through the kidneys each minute. That's a lot of blood that's going in those kidneys, as those kidneys are constantly working hard to filter that blood. Kidneys receive the blood through the renal artery. You have sympathetic nervous system intervention, where it adjusts rate of urine flow and it stimulates the release of this hormone renin, which is going to restrict losses of water and salt in urine by stimulating reabsorption at the nephron level. Shows you another diagram. This is a cross section showing you the major and the showing you the cortex and the medulla. Okay, this is a single renal pyramid, and in your renal pyramid, you are going to have these arteries and veins, and you are actually going to have nephrons as well. These are nephrons. So a nephron consists of a renal tubule and a renal corpuscle. The renal tubule is a long tubular passageway, begins at the renal corpuscle. So the renal corpuscle is the spherical structure consisting of the glomerular capsule, typically called the Bowman's capsule, cup-shaped chamber, as well as the glomerulus. So glomerulus consists of 50 intertwining capillaries, blood delivered via the afferent arterioles. Filtration occurs in the renal corpuscle, and blood pressure forces water and dissolved solutes out of glomerulus capillaries into the capsular space. You have 3 functions of the renal tubule: reabsorb useful organic nutrients that enter the filtrate, reabsorb more than 90% of the water in the filtrate, and they're going to secrete waste products that fail to enter renal corpuscle through filtration in glomerulus. Segments of the renal tubule, you are going to have the proximal convoluted tubule, the distal convoluted tubule, and it's separated by a nephron loop that is typically called the loop of Henle. This shows you an excellent diagram of the of the nephron, where you're going to have your glomerulus along with your proximal convoluted tubule, your distal convoluted tubule, your renal corpuscle, and your loop of Henle. All right, so the goal of urine production is to maintain homeostasis. There's 3 organic waste products. You're going to have urea, creatinine, as well as uric acid. Uric acid buildup can actually form crystals. These crystals are what we actually call gout. So when people have gout in their foot, that is uric acid crystal. So it's our kidney's job in order to get rid of that uric acid so that you don't have those crystals forming. Organic waste products are dissolved in the bloodstream, are eliminated only while dissolved in urine, and removal is accompanied by water loss. So the kidneys usually produce concentrated urine. That concentrated urine is going to be filtered. The concentrate filtered by the glomerular filtration. Failure leads to fatal dehydration. So if you're not retaining enough water, then you're going to actually become dehydrated. Absorbs and retains valuable materials for use by other tissues, sugars, amino acids. Basic processes of urine formation, you have filtration, reabsorption, as well as secretion. So an overview of renal function, you have water and solute reabsorption, active secretion, as well as long loops of juxtamedullary nephrons and collecting system. This is another diagram showing you that you have filtration is exclusively in the renal corpuscle across the filtration membrane. Water reabsorption occurs primarily along the proximal convoluted tubule and the descending limb of the nephron loop, but also to a variable degree in the distal convoluted tubule and collecting system. Variable water reabsorption is going to occur in the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting system, and you have solute reabsorption occurs along the proximal convoluted tubule, the ascending limb of the nephron loop, the distal convoluted tubule, and the collecting ducts, and then you have variable solute reabsorption or secretion is going to occur at the proximal convoluted tubule, the distal convoluted tubule, and the collecting system. So the composition of normal urine results from filtration, absorption, and secretion activities of the nephrons. Remember, the nephrons are the functional units of the kidney. Some compounds, such as urea, are neither excreted nor reabsorbed. You have organic nutrients are completely reabsorbed. Other compounds missed by filtration, such as creatinine, are actively secreted into tubular fluid. So when we look at the composition of the urine, we're looking at its clarity. Is it clear? Its color, is it yellow? The pigment is urobilin, which generated in the kidneys from urobilinogen. And urinalysis is when we are going to analyze that urine sample in order to use as a diagnostic tool to look for underlying disease. This is an excellent diagram that you should look at when you get a chance. So urine transport, storage, and elimination in infants, lack of voluntary control over urination. They are not able to control when they urinate just yet. And cortical-spinal connections are not established, which is the reason that they're not able to do it even if you were to try to potty train them and remain diligent. It wouldn't matter. Incontinence is the inability to control urination voluntarily. So we see that in infants. We also see that in the elderly. May be caused by trauma to internal or external urethral sphincters. Age-related changes, you have a decline in the number of functional nephrons, reduction in the GFR, reduced sensitivity to ADH, antidiuretic hormone, problems with micturition reflexes as well. So keep these things in mind as we move forward.